So the premise of the show, the Small Business Big Marketing Show, so this is what it does. I interview successful small business owners about... there he is, Sam.
Morning.
This is Beau.
Hello,
Beau.
Sam. Hi, buddy.
It's nice to meet you, mate.
Yeah,
How
good
are
to
you? How are you?
Thanks.
I'm just going to get our backup rolling.
Oh, good on you. So it's about, we're going to talk about your story and then drill down into the marketing and how you've grown this brand.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Sounds
it's generally
great.
about 40 minutes.
Yeah, cool.
What it takes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good to go. You good to go?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Let's get into
Oh,
it.
just
yeah.
with the mic.
Yeah, where do you
Grab
go?
it. Just grab it. Don't be scared of it.
Yep.
If you see me do this, it means you've kind of gone off it. You kind of
Gone off it a bit. Okay.
Yep. It's fairly directional.
Yep.
So try and be. You don't need to be right on it, but
You can bring it closer to you, the mic. These stands are pretty flexible, so you kind of want it about a fist or so away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Easy.
You happy with that?
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
mate. We should have fun.
Good.
They're nice dead
All
strips.
right.
We can fix it in post. So I'm just going to put this one.
Yep.
Just give us a big both of you count down. Introduce
10,
yourselves.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's still
Beautiful.
yeah.
I
Good
come
on you.
a bit closer to the mic.
bit
I
closer,
reckon.
okay.
Yeah. And so if you see me do that, it just means come back
Yep.
to the mic.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All
Easy.
right.
Yeah, that'd be better.
Beauty.
All right.
Thank you, Sam.
No worries. Send me a text or give me a call. Might be better.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
I'll come and give you a hand.
He's my tech guy, but he can't.
Awesome.
He would normally sit here, but he's
cool.
got other stuff. Beauty. So no questions.
No,
Good to
all
go.
good.
I don't edit it. We have a laugh along the way.
Yep.
It's a conversation.
Perfect.
Ripper.
All right. Sounds good.
Good on you. So, Beau, welcome to the small. And by the way, just going back, I will have introduced you. I will have kind of set the scene
Oh, like I
as
said,
to
yeah,
who
that's
you
fine.
are. And okay.
Excellent.
So, welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
What were you doing pre-Prospa?
Immediately pre-Prospa, I actually had another business. So it was another small business. It was in telematics, which is,
That's a made-up word.
it is a made-up word. But no, it's actually a real business. It's in the sort of GPS fleet management software space. So if you picture a business owner that's got a fleet of, say, 50 vehicles, you're trying to optimize the way those vehicles operate. So it might be a plumbing business, for example. You're trying to figure out how many jobs can you take on, where are your vehicles,
okay.
how they've been driven, what's the fuel efficiency.
And that was your business?
It was, a business that I started.
You started?
So I partnered with a number of different brands, including a product out of Canada, out of North America. And I was importing that product and then distributing it to fleet owners.
So your role had to this small business game?
Yeah, so Prospa's the fourth business that I've had.
Oh,
so,
wow. What were the other two out of business?
So the other two, one was in a property development space. So Old Man and I actually looked to sort of acquire sites and get DAs over it, and not big developments, but small townhouse style stuff and duplexes. And prior to that, I had a scooter business. So in sort of the early 2000s, when Vespas and all that were sort of taking off and becoming more of a popular mode of transport, fuel prices. I mean, fuel prices today is nuts, but back then it was also, it always feels like it's expensive. Started a retail business actually. So
selling scooters.
Selling scooters,
Wow.
yeah.
So you look about 28, so you must have been about 14 when you started the scooter business.
Thank you for that kind.
Have you ever worked in corporate? Have you always
I
been?
have actually, yeah. So in between sort of my scooter and property business, I actually spent 5 years in corporate.
Huh.
The reason for that was twofold. So what I actually found a corporate that was entrepreneurial, which is quite difficult actually to find. A real corporate that's got the sort of systems processes that you can learn about. But actually act like a bit of a startup and sort of an entrepreneurial mentality. So I was very fortunate to find a great company called Flexi Group. So they're in the sort of consumer finance, commercial finance space. It was sort of my first exposure really to. So
you had a realisation at some point that, you know what, small business is for me?
Absolutely, yeah.
Are you a serial small business starter and seller, or are you in Prospa for the long term? Because you've had 4 already, right?
Yeah. Oh, 3. This is the 4th. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I think when you start a business, if you're honest with it, the truth is you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and I think every startup or entrepreneur or small business owner can appreciate that first, particularly 1 to 2 years where you've got this great idea, you're trying to figure out whether or not you can find a customer to actually buy your product and want to refer you to other customers. So it is really unknown in those first couple of years. And I think with Prospa, we knew there was a really big problem. We knew there was a really unique way of trying to solve that problem that we were developing. And it's just scaled into a business that's significantly larger than when we started, we probably even thought we'd get to.
Mate, it sure has. I feel like you've kind of only scratched the surface. We'll come to that and talk about how that growth has happened and where next. But so going back, you are in, what are you in, telematics?
Yeah, so I was in...
So did you experience a problem while you were in that telematics business of trying to get finance from a bank? How did Prospa come about?
So the sort of the challenge in, I suppose, the telematics space as well is that a typical GPS tracking system for a vehicle and then the software that comes behind it was equivalent to about $1,500 per vehicle. So if you have 10 vehicles, that's $15,000.
Yeah.
And even though there's a really strong business case for a business owner to say, yep, I can probably save fuel, or maybe I don't need 15 vehicles, I might be able to get away with 14 with the insights, it's still a large lump sum to come up with. So the challenge of finding capital as a small business owner has always been there, and it probably will always be there. But it was actually a mutual friend that introduced me to the co-founder of Prospa. His name's Greg Moshal, and Greg is also a serial entrepreneur. I think this is his 7th business. So love it. Yeah, he's had a number as well that he's exited, and he was in the process of selling one of his previous businesses, and he'd had the same experience as a business owner of finding capital. So when I had my telematics business, for example, I was importing stock from Canada, and I couldn't just import. It wasn't just in time kind of provisioning. I have to order hundreds of these units. Which my buy price on that was around about $1,000 a unit. So if I'm bringing 200 of them in, I've got to come up with $200,000 cash.
But you've made all this money from property development, so you got the cash.
I was fortunate
under your bed, isn't
to
it?
do it, but the better the company did, the more cash it consumed in terms of inventory. So and then you had a fulfillment time, and then customers weren't going to be paying you on day one. You were going to be putting them on 12 or 24, 36-month contracts. So the money was going to come in over time. So I had a very profitable concept, but the bigger it became, the more cash it needed. And that's quite often the challenge that many small business owners face. And Greg, the other founder, had seen that in his own businesses. He had a fashion accessories business where he was supplying almost 6,000 retail outlets across the Asia Pacific region. And he was providing stock to companies like Myer and David Jones, who they'll pay you in 90 days if they want, 120 next month.
And by the way, if they are listening, get real, guys, because 60 to 90 days is not good enough.
No, it really isn't. Yeah,
for a small business owner, that can kill a small business, right? In terms of cash flow. It really can.
Yeah. And quite often what the bigger end of town is doing is using the small business terms as a bank.
Yeah, we're the bank.
Yeah, it's
how wrong's that?
It really is wrong. Yeah, it's a interest-free bank for them too.
Yeah,
so
correct.
You sort of see what
and the small business owner. We're digressing, but the small business owner can't kick and scream because they don't want to lose the business of the big corporate. You're caught between a rock and a hard place.
You really are, and you know they're going to pay the invoice eventually.
Yes, so it's a safe invoice, but
it
it's
really
like
is.
you're there too. So,
exactly.
So what was the main blockage? I've not borrowed money for a business. What's the main blockage when you're going to borrow money like you and Greg were doing?
There's a number of things. So the first is the time that it takes. So before Prospa had come about, Greg and I, as I said, we'd had businesses and both gone to look for finance. So, but if you go through a bank or a traditional financier, it typically takes anywhere up to 2 weeks just to finish the application that you need to submit. And I can recall walking into a bank branch, I won't say which one, looking for a small business or a business lending expert. They didn't have one. They said, here's the application form, which was a 16-page document.
Wow.
And on the last...
How are we talking, 6 years ago?
This would have been 2000... Yeah, so probably about 6-7 years ago, yeah. And the process isn't that different today, by the way, in the big institutions. But you have this 16-page document. On the final page, you would have a checklist of all the extra documents you needed to provide. And pretty much all cases required you to go to your accountant. So now you're spending money and get copies of financial reports, your business activity statements, a whole range of manual documentation that you may not as a small business owner have kept on your files. Sure. You might be keeping with your accountant. You submit that into the bank, and then it would go into the assessment process. And that could take anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 weeks.
I feel sick listening to that.
It's terrible. Just to get an answer. And
what aren't they getting? Let's have a bit of a bank bash. what aren't they getting? Look, because they say, sorry, I'll get my back up here, because they say, oh, we love small business and we're there for small business, and some of them are. I mean, I've got a sponsor in American Express, and they're fantastic, and Prospa, by the way, but, they do get it. Others just like, what are they missing?
Look, I think they like big small business. So if you think about what is a small business, there's a lot of definitions of it.
Yeah.
But in a banking context, typically a small business to a bank is someone looking to borrow typically several $1 million of money. So a business owner coming in to borrow $2 million to go and build a new warehouse, or coming in to borrow $750,000 against.
So 16 pages, I get.
You can for a couple $1 million, absolutely. Go to your account, get all those documents. I get that if you're taking that exposure. Now at Prospa, we work with the 97% of businesses that what we would classify as the S of SME.
Bless them.
And our average loan size is $26,000.
Right.
So you can appreciate that if you're a local cafe and you've got an 80-seat cafe and you want to renovate the back, put a new shade cloth in to add another 20 seats to your cafe, and that's going to cost you $30,000 to do, you don't want to go through this laborious process. No. And the reality is, I don't think the banks want to go through it either, because they can't make money out of a $20,000 facility with all of that cost.
Maybe the 16 pages plus attachments is to put you off, right? Unless you need a lot of money.
Sometimes I think processes in big corporates are just there because it's the way they've always done it.
Keep people busy.
That's right.
So you and Greg are in business. You're going, geez, borrowing money's hard. You've looked at each other in the eye at some point and gone, should we take it on?
Yeah, well, the way we came together was Greg was selling his previous business and was looking at what to come into next. And we'd taken a bit of a look, or he'd actually taken a look at the US market and had seen that, post sort of the GFC, which was much more brutal in the US than Australia, the banks pretty much shut up shop. So they stopped lending to each other, let alone lending down to small businesses. And America's also a small business economy. There's 30 million small businesses over there, so it's a lot bigger than ours, but these small businesses didn't have access to capital, and a whole range of different options started to emerge. And because of my background, the corporate that I'd been at for 5 years before my telematics business was actually a sort of a pioneer in innovative finance solutions in Australia, certainly banking alternatives. And I'd spent the last couple of years when I was at FlexiGrid building out a new commercial small business equipment finance lease. So if you're a business owner looking to buy a photocopy, for example, we'd provide the financing for a photocopy or for television screens in your office or whatever. So we it sort of made sense for us to come together, and we got introduced by a mutual friend, and we sort of
what was that introduction about? Did your mutual friend see two entrepreneurs who were ready for the next challenge, or who had a similar problem they were trying to solve?
Well, I was actually in the middle of my telematics business, so and that was going quite well.
Hey, I'm good here.
Yeah, things are working, but I was also looking to the future, and I could see the future cash flow requirements of this model, should it work, were going to be substantial. And our mutual friend was one of my groomsmen at my wedding and so forth, and Greg, my business partner, was talking to our friend and pitching his idea, and our mutual friend said, well, have a chat to Beau, because he's spent years in that world, at least on the equipment finance side of things, and it might be meeting in the minds on a few ideas.
So you've both gone, we need to disrupt this, or at least it needs to be disrupted. Maybe we're the blokes to do it.
That's right, yeah.
How did you go about maybe disrupting the banks?
So the first starting point was, and I think this is where every business starts, is you've got to have a starting proposition. So MVP, call it what you want, proof of concept. You need a minimum viable option for your customers. So we designed a product that we said, well, if we were looking for money, and we had been in the past, what would we expect? What kind of experience would we want to have?
Great question to ask.
And it was really coming from that empathetic spot of the small business owner. So we thought about things like, it needs to be simple. So get rid of the 16-page application. Today it's 1 page. When we started, it was 2. So we said, we can't make this 10% better. We've got to make it transformatively better. So rather than go from 16 pages to 6 pages, how do we get it right down? And we got it down to 2 originally.
It wasn't in like 3-point type or something, was it?
No, that was in 12-point type.
12-point times New Roman.
That's right. So then we said, well, the funny thing about finance is there is this risk side to it. So it's very easy to send money out and lend it out. The trick in finance, you need to make sure you're getting it back. And that's obviously to have a sustainable business, but also so you can go and access funding, so you can loan more money out in the future. So we then had to work out, well, what is our credit going to be? Because you can't say yes to everyone, but we didn't want to be like a bank who would only say yes to 5 or 10% or 20%, whatever it is, of customers. And more often than not, banks wanted security. So in our experiences, when we'd apply for finance, even if they approved you after 8 weeks of assessment, more often than not, they were saying, that's great, I'll give you $30,000, but I want to charge over your property. And for Greg and I, that just didn't make sense. Why should I put my $800,000 family home on the line for such a small amount of money? So that was another feature we were going to build in. It needed to have no asset security, It's a simple application, no asset security, and more important than not, we had to get a quick answer because small business owners can't wait 8 weeks. More often than not, when a small business owner requires capital, it's for a very positive use. It's for an opportunity. Sometimes comes out of nowhere, like a supplier says, hey, we've got all this stock that I need to get rid of, and I'm going to give it to you for 50% off, but you have to pay COD by Friday. And here we are on Wednesday.
Yep.
How do you come up with $10,000 or $20,000 you didn't forecast that quickly? So it had to be a quick answer, and even if it was going to be a no, it needed to be given as quickly as we could. So with those concepts, we designed a product, and then we actually started going out face to face, meeting small business owners, just walking the streets. So
imagine that.
Yes, I know.
Novel idea.
So Greg would take Norton Street in Leichhardt, for example, and talking to business owners. I was taking King Street down in Newtown, and and it was fascinating. Every business owner we walked into, when we said to them, have you had a requirement for capital in the last year? Almost 100% said yes. And we said, well, what did you do? And the majority of them said, I just didn't do whatever idea it was that I needed the capital for, because they knew the bank wouldn't help, and they didn't want to go and ask family and friends, and they didn't want to pull money out of a home loan, tying their equity in their home to their business, which
so they either stagnate or they go backwards by not embracing that opportunity.
That's exactly right. So so really quickly, over the first sort of month or two, we could see there was going to be demand for this sort of product. And then
can I just ask, because we often talk to guests and they've gone and spoken to prospects who may use the product. Often people say yes, right? It's just, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, I'd use that.
Yeah.
But when the rubber hits the road, no, I'm not quite ready for that. So did you just listen to these people and naively, actually not naively, but go ahead and bring this Prospa to market, or
it's was such there a great point, Tim, that because what you're referring to there is there's the rational and emotional side to what people are saying, and quite often, and this is a major fallacy, for example, in the industry, quite often what you think or what a customer says is most important actually isn't most important. And when we started the business model, for example, there's a few different things to our product. So we've got to create, obviously, a loan amount. We've got to have a term, so how long do you have to repay the money over? There's an interest rate, so what does it cost you to borrow the money? There's a repayment amount, so is the repayment done on a quarterly, a monthly, a weekly, or a daily? So there's a lot of different features. And if you asked a business owner, what is the most important feature in a lending product, a lot of them will say rate. It's all about rate. I want the cheapest product that is available. And then you say to them, well, that's great, draw money out of your home loan. That's the cheapest, because that's 5%, and you can do that tomorrow. And then you say, oh no, actually I don't want to do that, I want to separate my personal and my business. It's like, okay, great. And then you say, well, what else is important? And that's where things like convenience, things like access, so will I get a yes and how quickly will I get a yes, become far more important than things like price. So
were you asking these questions when you were walking up and down Newtown?
We really were, and we were actually putting propositions in front of customers saying, well, okay, if I can give you a 10% rate product, but it takes 6 weeks to get an answer, or I can give you a 15% or 20% product and get you an answer in 2 days, which one would you prefer? And that started to guide the way we designed the product. And that was a really interesting experience for us, because what we were doing without realizing it is this sort of concept of user experience or design thinking. We were actually implementing that in that initial user research. And in the first sort of 6 months, we took it steady. We as I said, it's very easy to send money out in our business. You got to make sure that you're getting it back. And we were able to build up a really good base of initial customers, lend out a few $1 million, and as we were getting repayment history from customers, we kept on researching and asking them, what did you like? What didn't you like? What do you wish we were providing that we weren't? And that informed a whole range of
How were you doing that out of interest? Was it just the old email survey after the fact, or were you ringing them?
Ringing them, or
you
actually
and Greg
physically,
still, or you got...
Absolutely, me and Greg. So I think as a business owner, your product that you're offering to your customer is absolute your responsibility, like number one thing in your business. If you are getting the right product for your customer, ultimately someone else will build the product that they want. So as a CEO, business owner, the most critical component is product. And if you get the product right, you end up having customers that love you, that will refer you, that will advocate for your brand, and that builds a really good base over time.
Yeah, I love that. I just love the fact that you've gone out and not only spoken to them up front, but continued to speak to them. So where was the transition between you and Greg leaving your existing businesses and going, okay, selling those, Prospa's our 100% focus now?
It didn't take us very long, so it was less than 6 months into the sort of initial stages, and we could see what was in front of us.
That must have been exciting.
It was really exciting. Yeah, it's we'd hired our first few people by then, and I think we had a little group of about 8 employees in our office, and I think we've now moved through 6 offices. So
as we've grown,
165 now.
Wow.
In the team. So the headcount growth has been phenomenal, but that first, again, even in that first year, you still don't know if you've got a really successful and scalable idea.
Was there no one else doing this?
We were one of the first. Yeah, there wasn't anyone. So
why? I mean, with all respect, and hindsight is wonderful, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, Greg and I first sat down, and I'm a big believer in any business owner before you go into business, because you convince yourself it's a great idea.
Yeah.
There's a great book called The E-Myth, The Entrepreneur's Myth.
Yeah, well, I've interviewed Michael.
I have, great,
Michael, what's his name?
Anyway, Gerber. Yeah. But it's great, and he talks about a lot of these sort of concepts about don't convince yourself of something that you haven't actually proven to be true. And a lot of small businesses unfortunately fail in the first year because they sell themselves a story of success that doesn't really exist. So one of the questions that I think every business owner should ask before they head into business is that question: why isn't anyone else doing this? Because in my view, if something's a really good idea,
there will be
someone else has tried, and if there isn't someone else doing it, they failed for a reason. And you should explore that. Go and find and have a look what other people tried, what businesses did. Go talk to the people who failed.
So where did you end up with that?
So we did that research, and we couldn't find an example. And this was one of those business problems, rare as they are, where no one had tried to solve it. And in the beginning, we were like, geez, maybe we're missing something.
Yes.
Here. Maybe there's a reason why the banks don't play in this market. And again, you start to disprove these fallacies. One of those in the banking world was that small businesses are risky. They all fail eventually, and that's just not true. The first year, yes, there's a high failure rate. The second year, that drops off significantly. But by year 3 and beyond, small business owners are entrenched. They've understood their product market fit, and now they're trying to grow their businesses and operate them in new ways. So, we were able to disprove that sort of fallacy about where does risk lie. And the other part of small businesses is they're all different. No two businesses are the same. Even in the same industry, in the same suburb, if you have 2 cafes, they're actually very different businesses, different product offerings. Potentially got different rents that they're paying. They might have different seat sizes. One might have 80 seats, one has 30 seats. There's going to be a different operating model for those 2 businesses, even though they're in the same demographic and geographic area. So the complexity around the credit model, so how do you say yes or no to the right types of credit risks, is very, very complex to work out.
You must have had to employ a fairly smart person up front, like an actuary or something
we did. Data scientists as well. We were very fortunate to meet some wonderful people that had a really deep mathematical understanding and so forth. And it's never one thing or one person that brings a business to life. It's a combination. And absolutely, getting that credit modelling very early in our business right was important, because finance is an interesting product. It's one of the few products in the world where when when a customer buys a product from you, you as the product provider are taking the risk on the customer. Normally it's the other way around, that the customer, if they buy a motor vehicle from you, they're taking a risk that your product is good and won't fail. So it's kind of interesting in that it's flipped around in that regard. And it's also a product that, sometimes someone wants to buy the product from you and you can't sell it to them because, the business might not be
stacking up.
Yeah, it just might not be stacking up. And, we had an initial business value. One of our core values was to act with fairness. And that was a really important component of when, unfortunately, you can't help a business owner. And giving them a quick no is a very important thing as well. And then we'll try to provide insights to them and say, hey, here's some things you may want to think about that we saw in your data that came
Once
through.
you've resolved, you can come back and we'll
exactly,
look after you. So now you've got this product called Prospa. You remove the 16 pages, the attachments, the weeks that the banks put up in front of small businesses. What's the Prospa experience look like? And if I'm a small business owner looking to go and borrow money from Prospa.
So today it's entirely different. So the 2-page app we got down to is now a full digital application.
Beautiful.
So we launched that in 2014. It was one of the first in the world. So today you can land on prospa.com. In 5 to 10 minutes, you've completed the application form, connected those data points we need electronically, and then that's it. That's all the customer needs to do. Our credit system will go and retrieve all of those data points that we need in order to complete our credit checks, but we'll provide an answer back to the customer, and
within 24
hours it can be within the hour. But
where's the catch?
Well,
the interest rates are how much?
So our product works on a rate for risk model. So we've created a product. The average sort of rate is around the sort of credit card rate mark. So sort of those high teens to 20s. There is no catch. The decisions we've made, which was to invest in technology, is what makes this so quick for customers. And where the banks used to get all of this manual information in and then pay people to sit there and go through it, which takes time, which they'll raise a whole bunch of new questions. It's not predictable, and if a credit officer inside a bank's having a bad day, they're more likely to say no than yeah.
Sure.
We've systemized all that. So
remove the emotion.
That's right. It's now a technology that can work. Now that obviously costs money to build and invest in and improve and refine. So it's a really great way of actually providing a great experience to a customer where they're not having to wait for 8 weeks or even longer. In most cases, to get a note.
So at credit card rate, so your average interest rate at Prospa is around what? We're going to say 18%.
Yeah, around that sort of mark.
So it's not. Well, I'm going to say it's not cheap, but it's kind of what you're already paying that on a credit card. So people are willing to. There's that saying: people don't no longer buy brands; they buy experiences. So you're offering this incredible customer experience that's, ticking so many boxes about, getting finance quickly and making the process easy. And obviously, you're proof that people are willing to pay for that.
Well, absolutely. And the other part is that it's tailored to the customer's requirements. So you only pay interest for as long as you require the capital. So in the case of our product, our loans start as short as 3 months. So if you're only borrowing money for 3 months, you're obviously not paying that much of interest. And we go all the way up to 24 months. So if you've got a longer term initiative that's going to generate a return over a longer period of time, you can take longer to pay it. The thing that we've come to realise as we've been business owners of different businesses over our journeys, every business owners are much more sophisticated than people give them credit for. And I know as a business owner, I will not spend $1 on anything unless it's going to generate me a return. And interest on a loan is expense. So if you're going to borrow $10,000 and you're going to pay back $11,000 for argument's sake, if you're going to spend that $1,000 of interest, you want that money to do something good for you. And we often use the example in our business of the hairdressing industry, for example. Quite often the big suppliers will put on these deals where you can get $20,000 worth of stock for half price if you pay for it this week, cash up front. And if I'm a hair salon and I can buy $10,000 worth of gear that I can sell, shampoo and all that, I can sell it for $30,000. I'm making $20,000 margin over the next 4, 5, 6 months.
Sure.
I don't care if I'm paying $1,000 or $2,000 interest.
No, you don't.
I care about getting that $10,000, get that deal, and drive that extra margin in my business. So we've tapped into an understanding of the customer, and we actually ask them, what are you using the money for? Like, what do you expect this to generate for your business? And from a capital return perspective, it's amazing. We're a part of these journeys of customers growing their business. They take on these initiatives, they bring more revenue in, and then potentially they actually grow and expand their business into a second salon, or they open up a new location. So we're a part of these journeys in a big, big way.
Scope where you're at now with Prospa, Beau, you've got 165 staff. How many millions have you lent to small businesses in Australia?
So we've now lent over $500 million. So it's
he says that with a very big grin on his face. That's amazing.
It's a lot of money, yeah. It's
in 5 years.
In 5 years, yeah. It's and it's in fact we've done $300 million of that in just over the last 12 months.
You've had crazy growth. You have had some crazy growth. I mean, I saw Financial Times ranked you as the #1 fastest growing company in Asia Pacific, with, what is it, like sales revenue increase of 6,000?
16,000.
16,000. Now, clearly operating off a low base there, right? But that's
it was
16,000% growth in 5 years.
Yeah, it's that was a wonderful accolade for the company to. We didn't expect to be the fastest growing in Asia Pacific, but absolutely, and I think it goes to a couple of points. I mean, number one, it goes to the size of the problem that exists in Australia. we are a small business economy. You know this better than anyone, Tim, that there's 2 million small business owners, and all of us know a brother, a father, a mother, a friend that's owning a business or running a business. And running a small business is bloody hard. And if you think about, as small business owners, what is on our mind, what keeps us up at night, there's only a handful of things. It's growing our revenue and making sure we've got good cash flow coming in, and it's managing our costs. And quite often the difference
I'll
between
add people to that. Everyone who sits in this seat goes, gee, it's hard to find good people and keep good people.
It is as a small business owner, absolutely. And a lot of the challenges are around working capital and cash flow timing within businesses. So we've tapped into a really big problem that exists for a very important part of the economy. And then we've delivered it in a really innovative way, in a way that it takes tens of millions of dollars of investment to build the experiences and that we've got. 165 people, it's not a small business in that regard anymore. We still think and operate like a small business. But
did you have to go to the bank to borrow to build Prospa?
Do you know, we don't take any funding from banks.
I love it. Good on you.
No, we're not reliant upon the banks in that regard. But,
well, that would go against everything you stand for, wouldn't it?
So, they do. They've got parts of the bank called institutional banking, and that's when they lend hundreds of millions of dollars. And look, eventually I think we'll be big enough to tap into that. And look, for a bank, that could also be a very easy way.
Would you want to?
If it was under the right terms.
You might not have choice.
Well, a key part of bank offerings is that it is cheap capital. So if Prospa can go through the 8 weeks or 8 months or whatever it is that we have to go through to work with and find really good cheap capital, and then we can provide that through to our customers in a form of a cheaper finance, then that's a good customer outcome. So we could work with the banks in that regard, and it actually gives the banks access to lending into small businesses without having to try and do it themselves. So we do explore that and keep on looking at the capital requirements of the business.
We're talking to Beau Bertoli, co-founder of Prospa, Australia's #1 online lender to small business and a sponsor of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, for which I thank you, Beau. Now, tell me, it's a pretty good story so far. It's quite exciting, and I feel like it's literally, said this before, but Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, when asked about Amazon, says, we're in day one. And this is the biggest business in the world. And he's going, with such a long way to go. Even when you say you've lent over half $500 million to small business, whilst that's a big number, I kind of get the sense that we're in very, very early days of Prospa. Do you kind of feel that?
We actually nicked that value day one. We love it. It's
amazing, isn't it? Like when I heard that, I'm like, but mate, you've got the biggest company in the world. Surely it's mature by now.
He's the richest man in the world.
Yes, he is.
As well. Amazon's a phenomenal. But I think that philosophy of day one is so applicable to every business owner.
Yeah.
And I think we've had a bit of a chat about this in the past, Tim, that in this day and age we've been in this technology revolution for 30 years. But what is happening is that the pace of change in tech is accelerating, and consumer choice is exploding. It's becoming easier and easier for the end customer to buy a product from somewhere else. So as a business owner, it is critical that you think like, I'm starting this business today. What would I do differently? Knowing what I know out of the last 2 years, 5 years, 10 years of doing my business, what would I do differently if I was starting this business today? And we at Prospa, for example, we come in and ask that question almost every week. And
great question.
We have strategy sessions around it on a very regular basis. We don't try to build 5-year business plans, by the way, or 3-year business plans. We build a 12-month business plan and we review it every quarter.
Love it.
And we've got a long-term vision. That long-term vision is to change the way small businesses experience finance. And it's really important for us to guide our decision-making towards that long-term vision. So clear vision, vague plan is the way we think about that execution.
I love it.
And having that vagueness doesn't mean you're chaotic in your decision-making. We're actually really clear and specific, but we're always coming back to what would we do different if we were starting this business today? Because that's what competition is asking when they come into your market. And sometimes people come into your market that are much better capitalized. Maybe they've even got more depth of experience than you have. You might have been doing something for 3 years. They've been doing it for 20 years. And here they come with $1 million behind them or more. So that day one philosophy is really important to embrace.
I love the fact that you're coming together often and revisiting your vision and revisiting your plan every quarter. A lot of small business owners listening probably get caught up in the busyness of business and forget to do things like that. And it's probably at their own risk peril that they do that, because stopping and looking around is probably a good idea.
Oh, it's so critical. Working on the business or in the business. One of the things we actually did very early in our business. So you'll have an office, no doubt, or a site that you work on. you've actually got to book an off-site place that you do these workshops at. And one day a quarter, if you can't put 4 days a year aside to work on the strategic side of your business, asking questions like, where are we playing in which markets? What are we doing and how are we going to win in these markets we play in? Do we have the right capabilities in the business? Even if you're 5 people, are those 5 people the right capabilities to execute against that plan? If you can't make 4 days a year, you're doing something wrong, in my opinion. So.
I want to talk about the growth and the marketing that's kind of helped with the growth. But before we do that, Beau, great story so far. What have you found difficult?
Lots.
Number one?
The biggest challenge that I think we've found is evolving through the different people phases of the business. So as a small business, and I'd view a small business typically as less than 30 people, you're more like a family. You know everyone, you're really close. Quite often when you start a business, you're recruiting from your network. So you've got a brother's friend that you know, and he's an expert in this area, you can bring him in and so forth. So it's a very different feeling in that sort of business. Then you've got to cross this sort of threshold where you say, well, we're going to be a family lifestyle kind of business, or we're going to grow up and we're going to try and build something even bigger. And that's when you start to do things like hire leadership roles in your business. You might hire a senior manager, like a GM or an executive, like a chief financial officer, for example. And that's when you start to build out a much more corporate-oriented style feeling. And that is a big transition for people, because quite often people join smaller businesses to have that family feeling, that family ethos. So those transitions, I don't think they ever stop. I think the bigger you get, the more you go through them. But it's the managing through those that we've found difficult. So we've still got a great
continue to find difficult.
We do, yeah. So we've got 165 right now, and it's interesting. There's a lot of talk out there about how many people can you know really, really well.
It's 150.
That's right. Yeah, it's that kind of village.
Did you read the Flight Centre book?
I haven't read it, but
about it.
Yeah. That's exactly right. It's that whole concept that you can recognise faces beyond 150, but you won't know their name. You won't.
Well, the 150, and we talked about this on a show recently, so I won't go back into detail on it, except to say that the 150 comes from tribal days. Someone discovered in what's the study of humans? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And found that a tribe of 150 was a good number. You could protect each other, you could feed each other, you knew everyone. We had all the different skills required within 150. But after 150, it starts to fall to pieces because it just gets too big, too many mouths to feed, too many chiefs, not enough Indians, all that type of stuff. Yeah. So then you split. And you start again, and Flights have done that very well with nations and tribes and countries, and they've got all this language around it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it's and we're actually in that transition right now as we go from past that 150, and we've now got an office with 2 levels, so you've got a staircase between it, but that starts to create a different feeling. So we're managing through that. So that's definitely one of the more difficult.
It'd just be hard because again, it's small business and losing that vibe, and you and Greg, who have started Prospa and brought a personality to it and, a set of beliefs and vision, to then hand that over to others and for them to... But one thing I've noticed, and I said this to you when we did the pre-interview, and, dealing with some of the people at Prospa and going to your offices, there is a really good vibe. And you can tell that people are very proud to work there. And that's one of the great things about brand. I've seen this in Virgin Australia, where... this show goes out on Virgin Airlines, and I had dealing with them, and again, people are proud to work there, and that great brands attract great people.
They do, yeah, and to build a great brand, I mean, it really starts with one thing, which is what's your purpose? Like, why do you exist? And you can't just say we exist to serve our customers. It's too fluffy, because every company says that. You've got to have a real, tangible customer value, and our team feel really connected to the purpose, to what we're doing here, and why our product is so valuable to a small business owner. Because I mentioned earlier, we're a part of their journeys, that we provide the capital that allows them to take advantage of those opportunities, that allows them to grow. And in our marketing team, for example, they run all of our case studies, and we'll happily talk to any customer we've ever provided funding to, and they're all happy to talk back and say, I'll share my story. There's some great video case studies on our website of companies that have used capital, they've grown into a new project, or they've taken on a new site or a new employee that you have to pay their wages for the first 3 months before they're productive for you, and so forth. So the people phase is really important. We spend a lot of time at Prospa working on our culture, making sure it is a place that people feel connected to our purpose and are proud to work at.
Do you subscribe to that old saying, the customer's always right? But I had Jen Lim from Delivering Happiness. You know the Zappo story? I had Jen on she's one of the original founders of Zappo, one of the original workers of Zappo, and now runs the Delivering Happiness agency.
Awesome. She's
all about staff first.
Yeah.
You got happy staff, you got a happy customers, you got a great business.
100%. Yeah, absolutely right. You got to have happy staff and the right staff. So because you have happy staff with the wrong staff as well, and they'll drive your customers bonkers. But it absolutely starts with your people. So
is there a kind of one thing that you guys do to make sure that you employ the right people?
The biggest thing we've introduced in the last few years is called a cultural interview. So what we realised was happening is that we'd have these job descriptions for a particular role, and we'd have talent acquisition activity happening, whether it was through LinkedIn or Seek Ads or a recruitment agency, get a good talent pool in, and then we'd assess these applicants against skill sets and run interviews and all that kind of stuff. Well, what we weren't doing is then testing for cultural fit. And as we went through that change from 30 people and started hiring leaders and so forth, it goes from Greg and I, the founders, interviewing every single person who joins. So we're naturally picking a cultural fit with the company we want to see in the future. And we were the kind of filter weeding out misfits, to leaders now making decisions around cultural fit. And what we realised is that there's probably a more effective way of making sure we had a cultural alignment. So we wrote down a document. What is our culture? We said, and culture is about the behaviours. How do you behave as a company? It's not about having everyone the same. And in fact, at Prospa, we have 40% female in our team, 6% male, which is one of the highest around. We have people from 33 different countries of origin. So not just like background, they were actually born in 33 different countries. So we have a very diverse workforce, yet we're culturally aligned. So it's not about people you like, which is what often happens with hiring managers. They go, that guy girl's a good bloke, a good girl, I'll get along with them, so I'll hire them. It's about, do they match the behaviours we expect in the business? And that's what drives your culture. So that cultural interview is now run by what we call cultural ambassadors. So we have 15 of them across the team. They represent and live and breathe the culture at the highest levels, and they love it. And every person that's up for a final interview goes through this, and the cultural interviewees have veto rights. So if they're not happy with someone,
love that, mate.
they could hit all the schools.
Empowering other people, imagine that.
And we're talking frontline people here. So it could be frontline customer service agent who's a real representative of culture could be saying no to a senior leader.
See, I imagine that frontline person too is going, you know what, they really respect me, in another company I'm just the person on the phone, but you've actually given them additional kind of responsibility.
Absolutely,
I love that.
And what that creates is everyone now joining has gone through a cultural interview, so they feel like, this company has embraced me as living out our culture. Now, every company has a different culture, so you've got to know what yours is, and if as a business owner you focus on that, again, back to what should a business owner be putting time into. So there's obviously the product, there's strategy, and then on the people side, we think about people as, let's have the right people in the right roles, but culturally, more importantly, let's have the right culture, and let's make sure the business is doing things to strengthen what it stands for.
Let's talk about growth. I feel like you've had incredible growth. I mean, you've proved it with the numbers, but even the brand growth, the brand awareness over the last couple of years, it just seems Prospa. I'm seeing Prosper a lot. I don't know whether it's because now you sponsor the shows. It's like, you're looking to buy a red car, so you see lots of red cars. But you're advertising on radio. Am I being simplistic to say that's actually helped grow awareness quicker than normally would? Or is there something else?
We put a lot of focus on building awareness. So if you went back 6 years before we started, if you asked a small business owner, would you consider or do you know of any banking alternatives, the answer would have been no, there are none. Fast forward to today, and there's a healthy percentage of small business owners that are aware of alternatives outside of the banks. But ultimately a brand is about its value proposition or its promise to its customers. And the clearer you are about what you stand for, and the more you communicate that through different channels, the stronger your brand reputation will be. And one of the strongest brand strategies that we've got in the business is actually customer advocacy. There is no better way to build out brand recognition and reputation. You can spend all the money you want on radio, all the money you want on telly and all of that. if you aren't building out a loyal base of customers who advocate for your product.
So is that this customer advocacy? Does that happen by pure the fact that you've got a great product? So therefore, people say the best marketing is a great product. So does that just happen naturally, or do you
I think that the best marketing is a great product where you try to amplify the advocacy. So one of the challenges that most businesses face is that even if you've got this loyal base of customers who keep coming back, what are you doing to actually encourage them to share their stories and let the broader community know, that kind of network effect? How are you using other mediums? So we use services, one example is Trustpilot. So Trustpilot is an independent review site. After every customer purchase, so everyone who's bought a product from Prospa, we say, hey, would you like to leave a review? And it's their words, they can choose to do it or not, and they rate us out of 5 stars.
And you send them off to Trustpilot
that's
for them
right,
to do that. Right, okay.
Now, Trustpilot as a marketing initiative, so right now Prospa's the #1 money product in there. We've got a 9.8 out of 10, 5-star rating. But it's then, okay, great, we've got that, and we've got, I think close to 1,000 reviews now, but most of them really, really encouraging, positive. What can we now do to amplify that and share that with the world? Because if we didn't do Trustpilot, we'd have all these happy customers and we're not letting them know that they're happy. Now that they've gone to one place, how do we then amplify that through other channels? So we'll take that and we'll say, put it on our website. So if someone new is landing on our website, they'll see that every opportunity I get to talk about, well, the company gets to talk about Trustpilot, we'll refer to, well, look, we are the #1 money product. So we must be doing something right if all these independent reviews are saying so. So I think you've got to have a great product, and you've got to find ways to get your loyal customer base. And
so just to understand Trustpilot, that's important. You get people leaving reviews, that's sitting there on a third-party site.
Correct.
Is there a plug-in that then allows you to put some of those reviews onto Prospa.com, or do you actually go and just copy and paste?
You can do either. So you can
or?
copy and paste, or you can put a little plug-in, like a little iframe that will look up and...
And do you get the opportunity to thank the people on Trustpilot?
We certainly do, yeah. So
how do you do that?
We hear from Trustpilot every time there's a review, so you have an account with them, and we'll go and say, hey, thanks for that feedback, and quite often what's actually happening is that a customer is not only recognising what Prospa's done, but they're actually recognising an individual within the business. Because one of the things you say to a customer is, did anyone stand out in your experience? And if they've had a really great experience with Angela, for example, they'll actually say, had a great experience, love the product, Angela was awesome, thanks and well done. And we'll make sure that Angela sees that.
Unreal.
And it gets that feedback from that particular experience. And conversely, if it's a bad review, it's not just stopping and going, oh, well, we've got mostly good reviews. It's like, whoa, what went wrong there? Let's dig in.
Yeah.
And right up to the highest levels of our business, we'll be on the phone talking to that customer saying, look, geez, what happened here? Let's get to the bottom of it and try and resolve their grievance. So fortunately, there's not many of them. So as a brand, you've got to be really clear what you stand for. You've got to activate your loyal base of customers. And every business has this repeat base of customers. So what can you do to take a review and amplify through Facebook to followers there? And then how can you try and build out more recognition for what you're doing from your loyal base of customers?
I love it. Reviews are so important. I can't believe the amount of small businesses that don't actually utilise them, get testimonials, actually use a whole lot of happy. And even if they're unhappy customers, I had Jay Bayer on this show a couple of years ago who's written a book called Hug Your Haters. And it's actually those bad reviews that are actually the ones that you're going to learn the most. And
I tell you, as a business owner, I hate seeing bad reviews, but I love them at the same time because I'm like, right, there's something we're not doing correct there. What are we going to learn? What are we going to change about our experience? And it might be that a piece of our technology didn't deliver the experience in the way that customer expected it, or a whole range of different things. But you learn, and then you have the opportunity to decide: do you do something about it or not? So I think as a business owner, you don't get as much feedback as you probably used to because a lot of our interactions with customers are now digital. But from a review perspective, you've got to try to get that feedback loop happening and do it as regularly as you possibly can. I remember reading about Jeff Bezos, for example, at Amazon, where he used to sit down, I think it was once a month, with the customer complaints team. And he'd say, right, I want to see the latest 10 customer complaints. And he'd look through them and be like, right, those 4 we can't do anything about, but those 6 there have really clear things that we can change. And he'd fire off notes to senior people. And this is when he had like 50,000 people. And he was still in.
Is it Amazon that's got the empty chair at the boardroom table representing the customer? One of those it might be Google or Apple. One of them has, for all board meetings, there's an empty chair, and that's the customer.
I love it.
yeah. I love it. Beau, thank you for sharing and Prospa and taking us behind the scenes. It feels like, if I'm going to sum it up, it just feels like you are crazily customer centric. Like, I'm not going to say over the top because that would infer negative, but you really, really embrace the customer a lot more than many businesses do, and that seems to be a major reason for your success outside of a great product.
Sure. Yeah. No. It's absolutely. I think customer is at the heart of every business.
Well, you don't exist without them.
You don't. No. You need a customer to buy a product from you, and then I remember in my Max business, every time I had a customer who purchased from me, I'd say, hey, do you know another 2 or 3 people that could use this sort of service? And simple things like that. Again, it's another form of advocacy. Yeah. And if they said, I'm not going to refer you, you'd go, geez, what do I do wrong? Again, that feedback loop comes through. So I think as a business owner, the longer you're in business, the harder it is to remember why you're in business, that you exist for your customers. So getting back to that and reconnecting and getting those feedback loops is so critical to being customer centric. And then your product sort of takes care of itself because your customers will tell you what they're looking for. And if you listen and you 2 ears and 1 mouth sort of thing, you'll see really quick what you need to do next.
Exactly. Act like an elephant, big ears for listening, small mouth for talking. That's right. Beau, well done, mate. You and Greg and the rest of the team at Prospa.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And if people want to borrow money quickly, overnight, same day, prospa.com/Timbo.
Right. Excellent.
Thanks, Beau.
Lovely to see you again. Hey, cheers, Sid.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you.
All right.
I'm
excellent.
going to hit space here. Oh, I'm very nervous about doing that. Right, done. Yeah. That was
awesome.
Good. Thanks, guys.
Right.
Could have kept going.
No, it's a